The chandelier lights hit Liam Westwood's face as he walked through the ballroom doors, and the laughter started almost immediately. "Is that really him?" A woman in diamonds whispered to her companion, not bothering to lower her voice. "I heard he's living in a studio apartment now." "Pathetic," her friend replied, sipping champagne. "Some people just don't know when to disappear." Liam kept walking, his black suit simple and pressed, his shoulders square despite every eye in the room tracking his movement like vultures circling prey. The Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom was packed with the city's elite, CEOs, socialites, investors who once begged for his attention. Now they turned their backs, forming small circles that closed tighter as he passed. The host, Marcus Chun, spotted him and couldn't resist. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced into the microphone, his voice dripping with false warmth, "it seems we have a surprise guest tonight. Liam Westwood, everyone. The man who once owned half this city." The applause was scattered and mocking. Someone actually laughed out loud. Liam found a seat at the back, away from the main tables where the current power players sat. He'd expected this. Expected the whispers, the sneers, the barely concealed satisfaction in their eyes. 6 months ago, these same people had called him a visionary. Now they called him a cautionary tale. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that he hadn't come here to beg for redemption. He'd come because the truth had a way of surfacing, and tonight it would. 18 months earlier, Liam had stood in his corner office on the 42nd floor of Westwood Tower, looking out over a city that felt like it belonged to him. Westwood Industries was worth $3 billion. His real estate empire stretched across 6 states. At 35, he was everything the business magazines wrote about: ruthless, brilliant, unstoppable. His younger brother Ryan had stood beside him that day, grinning as they signed the partnership expansion papers. "To family," Ryan had said, raising a glass of scotch. "To trust." Liam had smiled and clinked glasses, not seeing the shadow behind his brother's eyes, not realizing that Ryan had spent the last year carefully, methodically forging documents, creating shell companies, and building a paper trail that would make Liam look like a criminal. The accusations hit 3 months later. Federal investigators claimed Liam had been laundering money through offshore accounts, manipulating stock prices, defrauding investors. The evidence was damning. Signed documents, transaction records, emails that looked exactly like his writing style. "I didn't do this," Liam had told the board of directors during the emergency meeting. "Someone set me up," but the board had already made their decision. They voted unanimously to remove him as CEO. Westwood Industries' stock plummeted. Investors pulled out. Within 6 weeks, the company declared bankruptcy, and Liam's personal assets were frozen pending investigation. His mansion was seized. His cars were auctioned. His so-called friends stopped returning calls. And Amelia, his wife of 4 years, had packed her bags on a rainy Tuesday morning and left without saying goodbye. She'd left only a note on the kitchen counter. "I can't watch you destroy yourself. I'm sorry." That had hurt worse than anything the media wrote about him, worse than seeing his life's work crumble. Because he'd loved her, truly loved her, and she'd walked away when he needed her most. Ryan, meanwhile, had swooped in like a savior. He'd restructured the company, convinced investors he could save it, and emerged 6 months later as the new CEO of Westwood Industries 2.0. The press called him a genius. The board called him a hero. Only Liam knew the truth. But without proof, without allies, without resources, he was just a disgraced billionaire shouting into the void. So he'd gone quiet. He'd moved into a modest apartment, taken a job consulting for a small tech startup, and spent every spare moment digging through old files, following paper trails, looking for the one piece of evidence that would prove Ryan had orchestrated everything. He hadn't found it yet, but he kept looking. Back in the ballroom, the charity auction had begun. Marcus Chun stood on stage, his voice booming through the speakers as items flashed on the screen behind him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause for tonight's sponsor, the man who brought Westwood Industries back from the dead, Ryan Westwood. The applause was thunderous. Ryan stood from his table at the front, waving like a politician, his $1,000 suit perfectly tailored, his smile bright and confident. He looked every inch the successful billionaire that Liam used to be. Ryan's eyes found Liam in the back row, and his smile widened. He grabbed the microphone from Marcus. Thank you all so much. You know, tonight is about giving back, about remembering that success isn't just about what we build, it's about what we learn from failure. The crowd murmured in agreement. I want to take a moment, Ryan continued, his voice taking on a more serious tone, to acknowledge someone who taught me valuable lessons. My brother Liam is here tonight. Every head turned. Liam felt the weight of 200 stares. Liam, if you're listening, Ryan said, his voice dripping with false sympathy, I want you to know there are no hard feelings. You made mistakes, but those mistakes taught me what not to do. So thank you, brother. Really. The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. A few people actually applauded. Liam's jaw tightened, but he didn't move, didn't react. He'd learned in the last year that silence was sometimes the strongest response. Ryan handed the microphone back to Marcus and returned to his seat, where a blonde model-type woman kissed his cheek and whispered something that made him laugh. Liam checked his watch. 9:47. He'd give it another 10 minutes, then leave quietly. There was no point staying where he wasn't wanted, where his presence was just entertainment for people who'd forgotten what loyalty meant. He was about to stand when the ballroom doors burst open. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. The auctioneer paused. Every person turned to look at the woman standing in the entrance, her chest heaving like she'd been running. Amelia. Liam's heart stopped. She looked exactly the same. Long dark hair falling past her shoulders, brown eyes wide and glistening with tears, her elegant black dress slightly wrinkled like she'd thrown it on in a hurry. In her hands, she clutched a manila folder so tightly her knuckles were white. Liam, she called out, her voice breaking. Liam, where are you? He stood slowly, his mind racing. What was she doing here? Why now, after 18 months of silence? Her eyes found him across the crowded room, and she pushed through the tables, ignoring the shocked whispers, the camera phones lifting to capture the moment. Amelia? Liam's voice was barely a whisper as she reached him. I'm so sorry, she gasped, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. You were right. About everything. I hated it. He forged it all. I found the proof. The folder shook in her hands as she opened it, pulling out documents, spreadsheets, emails. I've been working as Ryan's assistant for the last 3 months. I thought if I could get close to him, I could figure out what really happened. And I did. Liam, I found everything. Ryan was on his feet now, his face pale. Amelia, what are you doing? You're making a scene. Shut up. She whirled on him, her voice echoing through the now silent ballroom. Just shut up, Ryan. I know what you did. I have the original documents you forged with Liam's signature. I have the shell company registrations under fake names. I have the offshore account transactions that you backdated to frame him. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus Chun stood frozen on stage, microphone forgotten. You're insane, Ryan said, but his voice wavered. That's defamation. I'll sue you. Sue me. Amelia laughed bitterly. With what defense? I have your confession, Ryan. You got drunk 2 weeks ago and told me everything. You thought I was on your side. You thought I believed Liam was guilty. She pulled out her phone, pressed play, and Ryan's voice filled the room through the ballroom speakers, slurred but unmistakable. Liam never saw it coming. Thought we were partners. But I was smarter. I built the perfect frame, and he walked right into it. Now everything's mine. The company, the money, the respect. Should have done it years ago. The recording continued, Ryan's drunken laughter echoing obscenely in the horrified silence. Liam stared at Amelia, his throat tight. She'd done this. For him. After everything. Ryan lunged forward, trying to grab the phone, but hotel security was already moving. 2 large men in suits stepped between Ryan and Amelia, their hands raised in warning. Get away from her, one of them said firmly. The board members who'd voted Liam out were on their feet, their faces ashen. Investors who'd pulled their money were pulling out phones, making urgent calls. Reporters in attendance were typing frantically on laptops. Liam walked slowly to Ryan, who now looked small and cornered, his confidence evaporating. They stood face to face, and for a long moment, Liam said nothing. "You didn't just steal my company," Liam said quietly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You destroyed our family. You made me doubt myself. You made everyone I trusted turn against me. For what? Money? Power? You had everything." Ryan spat, his mask finally dropping. "You were Dad's favorite. The golden son. I was always just a backup plan. I deserved what you had." "You deserved nothing," Liam said, "because you never built anything yourself. You just tore down what I created." Security began escorting Ryan toward the exit. He struggled, shouting denials, making threats, but the evidence was everywhere now. Amelia had given copies to 3 major journalists in attendance. By morning, the story would be international news. As Ryan disappeared through the doors, the ballroom erupted into chaos. Board members rushed toward Liam, apologizing, explaining, making excuses. Investors wanted to talk about reinstating him. Marcus Chun was frantically trying to salvage the evening. But Liam only saw Amelia. She stood there, tears still falling, the empty folder hanging from her hand. "I'm sorry I left," she whispered. "I was scared and confused, and I believed the lies. But I never stopped loving you. And when I realized what Ryan had done, I couldn't let you keep suffering for his crimes." Liam reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "You came back. I never should have left. You did what you thought was right. And then you made it right." He pulled her into his arms, and she collapsed against his chest, sobbing. Around them, cameras flashed, people talked urgently into phones, the world kept spinning. But in that moment, none of it mattered. "Let's get out of here," Liam said softly. She nodded against his shoulder. They walked out together, past the gawking crowd, past the reporters shouting questions, past the life that had tried to destroy him. Outside, the cool night air hit their faces, and Amelia took a shaky breath. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now." Liam looked up at the sky, at the city lights that had once felt like his kingdom and then his prison. "Now we rebuild. The right way this time. Together." 3 months later, the headlines had shifted. Westwood vindicated, brother arrested for fraud. Liam Westwood returns as CEO of restructured empire. The comeback no one saw coming. The federal investigation had cleared Liam of all charges. Ryan was awaiting trial, facing decades in prison. The board had unanimously voted to reinstate Liam, and investors who'd abandoned him were now begging to get back in. But Liam had changed. The company he was rebuilding wasn't about ego or empire anymore. It was about sustainability, ethics, giving back. He'd learned what mattered during those months in the wilderness, and he wasn't going to forget. Amelia stood in his new office, smaller than the old one, with less glass and more warmth, holding 2 cups of coffee. She'd moved back in slowly, carefully, both of them learning to trust again. "The Times wants an exclusive interview," she said, setting his coffee on the desk. "Tell them maybe next month." Liam smiled, pulling her into his lap. "I'm not in a hurry anymore." Liam Westwood. "Not in a hurry? Who are you, and what have you done with my husband?" "Your husband learned that the rush to the top means nothing if you're alone when you get there." He kissed her forehead. "I'd rather build something that lasts with you than rule an empire alone." She rested her head on his shoulder, and they sat there in comfortable silence, watching the city through the window. The world had laughed when he fell. They'd whispered when she cried. They'd written him off as another cautionary tale about hubris and downfall. But they'd underestimated 2 things: the power of truth and the strength of love that refuses to give up. In the end, Ryan's betrayal had taught Liam something money never could. That real power isn't about controlling others. It's about knowing who you are when everything else is stripped away. And real love isn't about staying when things are easy. It's about coming back when things are hard. They'd both learned that lesson the painful way, but they'd learned it together. Would you forgive someone who left you when the world turned on you? Could you find the strength to fight for truth when everyone believes the lies? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story reminded you that redemption is always possible, that love can survive even the darkest betrayals, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you powerful stories of resilience, justice, and second chances every single week. Stories that prove your darkest moment isn't your final chapter. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to remember that comeback is always stronger than setback. Because sometimes the person who walks away is the same person who walks back, and that takes more courage than never leaving at all.